Now and Then by Klemm. I went to sleep in my bunk in the 3-man dormitory room in the domiciliary, a program for homeless veterans with alcohol and or drug abuse issues in the West Los Angeles VA hospital on a night in June of 2013. I woke up in a dream, and I was back on the quarterdeck of the USS Claude V. Ricketts, DDG-5, Navy-guided missile destroyer of the Adams class, on which I served from February 1986 to October of 1989. I was back on the quarterdeck on which I had stood so many watches, both as messenger of the watch and later on as petty officer of the watch. There are dreams, and then there are visions. This was the experience of a vision. The smell of salty sea air mingled with the heavy, sweet smell of diesel fuel, and underneath that lurks a myriad of smells that a Navy warship accumulates through its service. Lubricants, greases, oils, paints. Above that, the smell of the port itself. Haifa, Israel, in December of 1987, was revisited in June of 2013. It was a port visit we paid to Israel as part of our ship's 6-month deployment to the Mediterranean, starting on October of 1987 and ending in April of 1988. It was sometime during the period between Christmas and New Year, far from home. I started off with an overview of the ship, as if I was flying down to it from the sky, and when I was on the ship, I felt like I was on the ship once again. The rough, black non-skid beneath my feet, running all up the ship's topside surface. It's like a miniature dried lava field, designed to allow footing when the ship was at sea, as well as in port as it was now. On the quarterdeck, there was scurrying about and a flurry of activity. There were people moving and things were happening. And then of December 1987, imposing itself over the now of June of 2013, that I had started the night off in. A fellow shipmate, the petty officer of the watch, had shot himself, resulting in his death. A shot in the dark I experienced and heard from about 10 feet away. He'd blended into the shadows created by the night, merging with the irregular patterns of the ship's lighting and the more distant, pale yellow streetlights of the docks. Where the lights' patterns ended, the night filled in with shadow, making pockets of darkness interspersed with patches of light that made it very difficult to see into those pockets of darkness. It was in one of those pockets of darkness that the sailor had slipped into after relieving the previous watch standard some 45 minutes early, so at 3 instead of 3:45. The OOD, officer of the deck, and myself, then messenger of the watch, I thought nothing of his relieving the previous watch standard early, except perhaps I was thinking how nice it would be to get some extra sleep. When the procedure for relief had been completed, and the OOD authorized the relief, the previous petty officer of the watch, who was one of my AS division shipmates, was off to extra sleep in his rack, and I was left with the OOD to wait out the seemingly endless last 40 minutes of our watch. I had been sent off shortly after that to wake up the next watch Sanders, and right after I had returned, there was a single gunshot in the night. It was unmistakably a gunshot, and in otherwise silent night, it sounded like a cannonball shot. We knew what it was, but not what had caused it. We thought someone had taken a shot from the pier, so we called a security alert, which sent armed men about the ship in response to the phrase, "Shots on the pier, shots fired on the pier." It was during that response that the POOW was discovered. He was lying on the deck, behind the shield of a TM K6 torpedo decoy, and in one of those dark pockets of night that was barely touched by the ship's lighting. Attempts were made to resuscitate him, but without success, and the chief hospital corpsman pronounced him dead. I awoke in the bed, no fog of waking as the usual case, but directly from sleep to waking. And though I found my body in the bed of that bunk in the dorm, I had no doubt that I had been back on that ship on the fateful night of December of 1987.